Hello everybody, and this is Dr. Vishal Trivedi from Department of Biosciences Bioengineering, and today we are going to start discussing about the new topic, and we will start with the beginning that how the different form of life actually acquire the energy from the from in this universe. So, as you know, and we have discussed many times in the past as well, that the sun is the ultimate form of energy in on this earth. Okay. So, sun is providing the energy, okay, and this light energy is provided by the sun is actually in the form of the photon. These photons are actually can be absorbed directly to acquire the energy, but the animal system as well as the plant system cannot utilize this energy directly to run their life cycle, because this form of energy their system, our biological system, is not competent enough to directly take this energy and run it for use it directly for the life cycle, for running their life cycle. What they have to do is they have to convert this energy to synthesize the chemical molecules and store the energy in the form of the bonds which are going to form this chemical, and then they have to break down this chemical, okay, and that actually will release the energy, and this form of free energy they can use to run their life cycle. And as you can see that the ultimate source of energy is sun, which is actually coming in the form of which actually providing the energy in the form of photon, and that can be used to synthesize the chemical molecule, and the plants have the ability to do this function by a process known as photosynthesis. So, as the name suggests, the photosynthesis means synthesis of chemical molecules by utilizing the energy by utilizing the chemical light energy. So, let us see how what are the reactions taking place when there is a photosynthesis happening in the plant. So, in the plant is taking carbon dioxide and water to synthesize the simple sugar plus water and plus oxygen. So, apart from synthesizing the chemical molecule, so you can see that the simple carbon dioxide and water is being used to synthesize the complex sugar known as glucose. So, and on the other hand it also gives rise to the oxygen. So, if you see this process, what you can see that it requires a light, okay. And why it require light? It require a light because these simple molecule has to be go through a complicated chemical reactions to give you the complex sugar or the glucose. So, actually if you split this whole reaction of photosynthesis, what you can see is actually you need a system to acquire the light to provide the energy. So, what you need? You need a system to convert the light to in the form of energy which can be used to drive this reaction. Then since this is a reaction, it can be also been catalyzed by the enzymes and it is not one reaction, there are multiple reactions which are required to do this function. So, you need a light reaction. The these are the series of reactions which are required to convert the energy which is present in the light to a useful form of energy, and then you need the chemical reaction or dark reaction. So, as you can see, you need a system which can actually capable of running a light reaction as well as the chemical reaction to synthesize the glucose, and it also gives the oxygen as a byproduct, and that oxygen can be used by the animal or as well as by the plant to run their metabolism to acquire the energy from this glucose. So, this is a simple reaction, look like simple, but it took a very long time for the scientists to decipher this complicated process, and it took almost approximately 300 years for these scientists to unreveal as well as to understand each and every process. So, let us see how the early scientists actually contributed in understanding the photosynthesis and its different steps. So, as you can see on the given slide, I have given the year in which the particular discovery has been made, and as well as the name of scientist and its particular role in making the discovery. So, you can see that the initial discoveries were made by a scientist known as Joseph Priestley, and Joseph Priestley was the only person who actually given the idea that plants actually purify the air to support the life, and he has done a series of experiments which anyway we are going to discuss to support this hypothesis that plants actually purifies the bad air and they provide the clean air, so that it supports the life on the earth. Then the similar kind of setup has been used by another scientist known as Ingen Haas, and Ingen Haas actually says that the sunlight is essential for purifying the air, and that is how he indirectly supported or supported the idea that it is actually a photosynthesis which is required. And then later on the Lavoisier has discovered that it is oxygen which is actually making the environment more purified, and it is a carbon dioxide which is being produced by the animal, and that actually is a bad air. Later on the other scientists also discovered different chemical reactants which are actually essential or important for photosynthesis, and then ultimately the Engelmann as well as the Blackman actually proposed that there is a light phase and there is a dark phase of the photosynthesis, and ultimately the Robert Hill actually come up with the idea that it is actually the lysis of water which actually releases the oxygen, and that is actually important for running the photosynthesis. And then that idea was being confirmed by the Rubin and his co-worker that oxygen actually involves from the water, and then ultimately the Kelvin discovered the Kelvin cycle to explain how the light energy being used to to synthesize the sugar molecules, and then the Peter Mitchell has explained how the light energy is used to generate a chemical gradient, and that gradient is being used to synthesize the ATP. And then ultimately Hagen-Slack has discovered the C4 cycle, which is the very common and popular cycle operated within the plant to synthesize the new compound. So, as you can see, these contributions are done by the different scientists following the different types of experiments. So, as you can so all these experiments are important to understand the contribution of each and every factor which is important for doing the photosynthesis. So, we will discuss that how the different factors are being identified and their role is being established in the photosynthesis. Okay. So, this is the simplest reaction, and I am not going into the detail of the So, what I am trying to say is what are the reactants in this? You have carbon dioxide, you have water, then you also have light. So, do not forget that this is all done in the presence of light, okay, and the plant pigment chlorophyll. So, you have number 4, the plant pigment chlorophyll, okay. And number 5, that is the product. So, oxygen is forming as a product, and number 6, the glucose or starch, which is actually the polymeric glucose, is being formed as a product. So, these are the substrate, this is the reaction vessel, and these are the products. So, let us discuss the first experiment to explain that the plant, and that is actually the classical experiment to explain that the plant actually purifies the air and provide the oxygen for the animals to breathe, and in return the oxygen animals are providing the carbon dioxide and provide the carbon dioxide for the plant to do the photosynthesis. So, this is the experiment which is done by the Joseph Priestley, and what Joseph Priestley has done, he actually taken the 2 jar. Okay. So, he has taken a jar, okay, and this jar was closed from the top, and what he has done, he has just kept a candle here, okay, and then he also has kept a rat here. So, what happened is this jar has a limited quantity of oxygen, okay, and you know that when we breathe, we take the oxygen from the environment, and as well as when you light up the candle also, when the candle burns, it utilizes the oxygen and give rise to the carbon dioxide. So, what will happen is either the rat or the candle is going to utilize this carbon dioxide oxygen and start producing the carbon dioxide. So, ultimately after some time what will happen is that this chamber is going to be filled with carbon dioxide, because there will be no replacement of oxygen from outside. So, as a result what will happen is that this candle and as well as this rat is going to die, because there is no oxygen for these rat or the candle to burn. So, as a result the candle will not burn and the rat is ultimately going to die. Now, what he has done? He has done exactly the same experiment under the similar condition, and what he has done? He has just did nothing, but he has put a plant in between. So, he has put a green plant, okay, and again he has put a candle and he has put a rat. So, imagine that it has some level of oxygen present in this jar, and then he has exposed, it was kept in the sunlight. So, what will happen in this condition? In this condition, there was candle was burning, candle was not getting turned off, and as well as the rat was also not dying, and that is what is happening because the plant. So, why it was not happening? Because still the candle was taking the oxygen, converting the carbon dioxide. Similarly, the rat was taking oxygen and producing the carbon dioxide, but on the other hand, so these are the bad airs. Okay. So, carbon dioxide is considered to be a bad air, oxygen is considered to be a good air. So, carbon dioxide is being produced exactly the same as in this experiment number 1, and this carbon dioxide is being taken up by the plant and produce the oxygen. So, what happen is there is a equilibrium, and as a result there is a oxygen level maintained in this chamber, and as a result the candle as well as the rat was happily living. Okay. So, that a simple experiment by Priestley has explained that the plants actually purifies the bad air and they produces the good air. Now, the question comes, how we can prove that the photosynthesis is requires the carbon dioxide for its functioning. Okay. So, if you have to understand the process of any process, like whether if you are asking the question about the carbon dioxide, then you have to have experimental setup where you can actually remove the carbon dioxide from the system. So, what you have to do is you take a bottle, okay, and imagine that you have a plant here. So, that plant has leaf, okay. So, take one of the leaf and put the leaf like this, okay. So, that the some portion of the leaf is inside and some portion of the leaf is outside, or otherwise what you can do is you can take two plants and put it under the jar. Okay. So, you take two jar, take the plant, okay. In one of them you keep a beaker which is filled with KOH, and in this one you take a beaker which is filled with water. Okay. Now, you keep both of these set up into the sunlight. After some time, just take out these leaves from both the plants, okay, and you identify or you test them for the presence of starch, and that you can do in with the help of iodine. So, you can take these leaves and do a iodine test. And how you can do the iodine test is you take these leaves and boil them in a solution of methanol for some time, and once the leaves are slightly weak or slightly loose, then what you do is you add the 2 drops of iodine, and once you add the iodine, the leaf which contains starch will get turned into so if the starch is there, the leaf will turn into black. So, in this case you will see that this particular leaf has turned into black, whereas this leaf will remain white or yellow, and that will prove that there is no starch formed when there is a when the KOH was present in the jar, and KOH is actually absorbs carbon dioxide. Okay. So, since the KOH will absorb all the carbon dioxide which is present in this jar, there is no carbon dioxide available for this plant to do the photosynthesis, and as a result there will be no starch which is going to be formed in the leaf. Whereas, in this case, since we are just adding the water as a control sample, there will be a carbon dioxide. So, this plant will do the photosynthesis and it will form the starch, and that is how when you do iodine test, you will see that it is forming a black color spots. Now, after this you can also test the whether the water is required for photosynthesis or not. Okay. So, for the water, what you can do is you can take a blue green algae. So, okay. So, take a blue green algae and grow this blue green algae in the so if the water is utilized, it will give you it will give you the oxygen. Okay. So, what you have to do is you take a heavy water. So, when I say heavy water means the water where the oxygen is labeled or radioactive. So, what will happen is after the photosynthesis, if you see a oxygen coming out from these plants, they will be radioactive. Now, we will also going to study the whether the light is required for photosynthesis or not. So, for the light we have 2 experimental setup and 2 different types of experiment which can be done. One experimental setup which we have just discussed about the Priestley. So, in the Priestley's experiment, what you can do is you can, and that experiment is actually being used by the Jan Hawks, that he proves that the light is required for converting a bad air into the bad air into the good air. And so, in that particular setup, what you have to do is take the 2 ball jar, okay, add the candle, okay, and add the rat, and you take the add your and cover this whole thing with a black paper. So, means you do not allow this particular thing to get into any kind of light, and in the other one you do not cover it with the black paper, you just let the rat and your plant. So, now you see that despite having a plant which is actually will going to produce oxygen. So, this one is getting a sunlight and this one is not. So, if I show you what is the result which is going to happen. So, since this one we have covered with the black paper, this particular jar, the candle is not going to light. Okay. So, it is going to stop and the rat is also going to die. Okay. Similarly, in this one no problem, this is actually the candle which is running and the rat is also alive because it is getting the oxygen from the plant. Okay. So, this is the one setup which the Ingenhousz has used to prove that the light is required for converting the bad air into the good air. Now, in a similar in a different kind of setup, what you can do is you can take a leaf, you can take a plant, okay, and just cover the whole a small portion of the leaf with the black paper. So, do not allow this particular portion to do the photosynthesis, and then you remove this leaf and to do the iodine test. Okay. So, imagine that you have two leaves. So, then you allow them to do a iodine test. What you will see is that this portion, so the whole leaf will turn into black and this portion is going to be turned into yellow, which means there is no sugar is being formed in the place where you have actually put a black paper, whereas in the place where there was no black paper, the photosynthesis was happening and it was forming a sugar. The other experiment which is actually the alternate experiment can be done. So, in the alternate experiment, the you know that light is being absorbed by the pigment which is present, which is known as the chlorophyll. So, okay. So, there are plants which are available which are does not contain the chlorophyll, or they actually contains the chlorophyll in a discrete manner. So, and those kind of plants are known as the croton plant. So, croton plant, I am sure you might have seen the leaves, they are actually having the patches, the yellow patches, brown patches and all those kind of patches on their leaf and along with the green. So, these patches where you have these yellow and brown and those kind of colors does not contain the chlorophyll. So, if you take these leaves and do a photosynthesis, followed by that if you do a iodine test, it will prove that the portion which does not which does not contain the chlorophyll is not going to give you the color, that will turn into yellow, the rest portion is going to be turned into black. So, that actually proves 2 points, that proves that the chlorophyll is important and indirectly it also proves that light is absorbed by chlorophyll. So, light is also important for photosynthesis. Now, we will also go to the other thing, that how people have deciphered that the oxygen is evolving during the photosynthesis. So, oxygen, you can do a very simple experimental setup to understand that the oxygen is evolving from the during the photosynthesis. So, what you can do is you can do a setup, okay, and simple setup. So, what you do is take a 2 jar, okay, and so this is the jar number 1, this is the jar number 2, okay, and you take any algae which grows within the water and take these algae, okay, similar algae you take here also, okay, and then you put a funnel on top of this. And the top portion of the funnel, what you can do is you can connect that to a test tube. Okay, and let it be get filled. Okay. Now, just take this whole setup and put it into the light. As soon as you put them into light, what you will see that the bubbles will start collecting, okay. And as soon as the bubble will start collecting, what you will see is that the if the water is filled up to here, okay, into this test tube, the water level will start dropping and oxygen is start filling here. And the same is true for this one. So, what you have to do is take this and keep it into no light, okay. And as soon as you put it the same setup in a no light system, you will see there is no oxygen evolution, or there is no oxygen coming out from the algae, and that actually will prove that the oxygen comes out from the plant. Now, in the similar setup, you can take out this and do a iodine test. And that actually will give you the glucose or starch, and that proves that the glucose or the starch is formed as a byproduct of the photosynthesis. So far what we have discussed about the different experiments which the earlier scientists have done to understand as well as to explore the different aspects of photosynthesis. And now we will continue our discussion about the cellular machinery which is responsible for photosynthesis. So, cellular machinery which is responsible for photosynthesis is chloroplast, because the chloroplast contain the pigments as well as this machinery to harvest the light energy as well as utilize that light energy to form the chemical molecules. So, let us discuss what is the structure of the chloroplast. As you can see in the given slide, the chloroplast is a organelle which contains the green color pigment called chlorophyll, and these green color chlorophyll containing chloroplasts are present in most of the plants, including the algae. The photosynthetic plastids present in algae are of different color. They are known as the chromoplast or the chromophast. For example, if a chloroplast, if a plastid present in the red algae, that is called as the rhodoplast, whereas the plastid which is present in the brown algae is known as the pheoplast. So, as you can see in the structure, each chloroplast is surrounded by the two membrane, one is outer membrane, the other one is the inner membrane, and within the structure we have two discrete units. One is called stroma, which is actually the liquid part, and then we have the other structure which is known as the thylakoid. So, stroma is actually a liquid part which contains most of the enzymes responsible for synthesis of chloroplast, synthesis of different types of molecules which are required for conducting the photosynthesis, as well as the enzymes which are running the Calvin cycle, and the stroma is the only site where the replication of chloroplast DNA as well as the transcription and translation of these proteins take place. The major enzyme Rubisco, which is actually responsible for synthesizing the organic compound, taking the energy from the light, is also present in the stroma. The other part is known as the thylakoid. The thylakoid is actually a membranous fold. So, what happens is that the inner membrane of the chloroplast folds into a membranous fold, and that fold is forming the thylakoids. Each thylakoid is actually a flattened sac like structure which is lined by the membrane containing the light harvesting units. The space between the thylakoid membrane is containing the mobile component of the electron transport chain, and the purpose of these mobile electron transport chain components are to carry the electron from one electron transport chain complex to the other complex. The thylakoid membrane are grouped into a disc like structure, and these disc like structures are known as the granum, and these granums are connected to each other by tube like structures, and they communicate and share the electrons between them as well as the reducing equivalents which are formed. The thylakoid membranes are arranged to harbor the 4 different types of complexes. So, what are these 4 complexes? The photosystem 1, photosystem 2, cytochrome B to F complex, and ATP synthetase. Okay. So, photosystem 1 is actually the chlorophyll A, and this is actually containing the light center, and that light center is responsible for capturing the light from the sun. And in the photosystem 1, the light center is the P700. Okay. Similarly, in the case of photosystem 2, it is also containing the chlorophyll A, but the light center is P680. Apart from that, it also contains a series of cytochrome B complexes, and these cytochrome B complexes are part of the electron transport chain. And the purpose of these cytochrome cytochrome complexes are to relay the electron from one complex to another complex, and in this process proton reducing equivalents are being produced. Similarly, the ATP synthase, the purpose of ATP synthase which is present on the thylakoid membrane is to use the the hydrogen motive forces and generate the ATP. So, that actually has a role in ATP synthesis. Apart from these four different complexes, the chloroplast membrane also contains different types of pigments, so that they can also absorb the light from the sun. So, what are these different types of pigments? So, let us see what are the different types of pigments are present in the chloroplast. So, within the chloroplast and as far as the photosynthesis is concerned, it has two different categories of pigments. One are called the primary pigment, primary photosynthetic pigment, and the accessory photosynthetic pigment. Within the primary photosynthetic pigment, the purpose of these primary photosynthetic pigment is to take the light energy from the sun and convert it to the chemical energy. So, within this category we have the pigment known as chlorophyll, and whereas the accessory photosynthetic pigments are actually not directly taking part into the process of photosynthesis, except that they are helping the primary photosynthetic pigments by absorbing the high energy light and then transferring this energy to the photosynthetic pigments. So, the purpose, so within this we have two molecules, one is called carotenoids and the other one is called phycobilenes. Okay. So, let us discuss about the first photosynthetic pigment, that is chlorophyll, and chlorophyll is a green color pigment. So, chlorophyll is a green color pigment. It is a green color pigment. Okay, and the chlorophyll is present in the 5 different variants, starting from the chlorophyll A to chlorophyll E, and all these chlorophyll A to E are having the different properties. Chlorophyll A is the primary pigment involved in trapping the light energy to form the chemical energy, and chlorophyll A has come into 2 different variants. One is called which actually is varying in terms of containing the photocenter, and there are 2 variants. One is called the chlorophyll A, which is 673 and 698, and the chlorophyll A 700. Okay. And this one is P 700 and this one is constituting for P 600. Okay. So, chlorophyll A, which actually is these 2, are responsible for making the photosystem 2, and this one is responsible or photosystem 1. Both of these photosystems are actively participating in the process of photosynthesis. Now, we will talk about the chlorophyll B. So, chlorophyll B is very much similar to chlorophyll A, except that it is olive green in color and it is present along with the chlorophyll A. The purpose of chlorophyll B is to assist the chlorophyll A in terms of providing the photosynthesis. Now, we will talk about the chlorophyll C. So, chlorophyll C is mostly been present in red brown algae, diatoms and dinoflagellates. It has a similar function as chlorophyll B, and it is very close to the structure in terms of other chlorophyll molecules. Now, chlorophyll D. So, chlorophyll D is present in red algae and chlorophyll E is present in Xanthophyllaceae. So, most of these chlorophyll molecules have the basic structure common. So, the chemical structure of the chlorophyll is constant from chlorophyll A to chlorophyll E, except there are subtle modifications at the side chain. So, let us see what is the structure of a basic molecule of a chlorophyll. So, as you can see on the given slide, a basic structure of a chlorophyll is that it contains the phytol chain or the tail. So, it is actually a tadpole like structure, and that tadpole like structure contains a phytol tail at the bottom and a head which is made up of the pyrrole rings. So, there are 4 pyrroles which are present in the chlorophyll structures, and these 4 pyrroles are containing a magnesium in the center, and this magnesium is attached to these pyrroles by the 2 bonds as a covalent bond and the 2 bonds as the coordinate bonds. And the differences between a chlorophyll molecule of the chlorophyll A to chlorophyll E is that the side chain methyl groups in the case of chlorophyll A is actually changing to other kind of variants in the other classes of chlorophyll molecules. Let us talk about the other photosynthetic accessory pigments. So, carotenoids, these are accessory photosynthetic pigments responsible for assisting the primary photosynthetic pigment for performing the photosynthesis. These are yellow or orange color. Okay. They contain the they are present in chloroplast as well as the chromoplast, and they are the tetraterpenes which are where either the both ends are open or the both ends are closed. So, they are the tetraterpenes, and in some of the carotenoids it is open ended, and some of the cases it is closed on both ends. They are mostly been responsible for collecting the energy from the sun. So, they are actually responsible for collecting the high energy from the sun and then transferring this to main photosynthetic pigments. There are 2 variants of carotenoids. One is called carotene, and within the carotene the classical example is beta carotenoids. So, beta carotenoid is a orange color pigment. Mainly present in different types of roots as well as the flowers, and they are as we discussed, the structure of the carotenoids contain tetraterpenes. So, and it can be open ended or as close ended. So, in the case of beta carotenoids, it is the close ended. And beta carotenoids is getting converted into the one of the important vitamin known as vitamin A in the case of in the animal as well as in the humans. The other variants is xanthophyll. So, xanthophyll, the classical example is the zeaxanthin. So, it is yellow colored. Example is zeaxanthin. The purpose of xanthophylls are that they protects the chlorophyll from photooxidation. So, as we discussed, these are actually the accessory pigments. So, purpose of these accessory pigment is to collect the high energy from the sun and then transfer it to the chlorophyll, and in this process they also protect the chlorophyll from getting the very high energy from the sun, because what will happen if the high energy comes and it directly goes to the chlorophyll molecules, the chlorophyll molecule will absorb this high energy and will, instead of performing the photosynthesis related processes, it is going to be get completely oxidized, and that actually will destroy the pigments present in the chlorophyll. So, let us see the general structure of the carotenoids. So, as we discussed, the carotenoid is actually a tetraterpene, and that tetraterpene, see for example, in this case we are showing a structure of beta carotenoids. So, beta carotenoid structure what we are showing is actually contains the tetraterpene, and in this case the both ends are closed from using the aromatic ring. Now, we will talk about the second accessory structure, and that is called phycobilenes. So, phycobilenes are of various colors. They are red and they are brown. So, if it is red in color, then it is called as phycoerythrin. If it is blue, then it is called as phycocyanin. They are open chain tetrapyrrole. So, you might have seen that the chlorophyll molecule actually contains the closed tetrapyrrole, where the 4 tetrapyrroles are linked together by a magnesium which is present in the center. So, the nitrogen which is present on the tetrapyrrole is making a covalent or the coordinate bonds with the magnesium which is present in the case of chlorophyll, whereas in the case of phycobilenes, it is actually a chain of open tetrapyrrole. So, let us see the structure of the phycobilene. So, phycobilene, as we discussed, it is actually a chain of tetrapyrroles which are linked to each other, and in this structure what you see is actually the modification what is happening from one phycobilene molecules to another phycobilene molecules. So, what we have discussed so far, we have discussed about the major discoveries made by the different scientists, and we have also discussed about the different types of analytical as well as the biochemical experiments being performed by the scientists to discover the different events of the photosynthesis, and then we have also discussed about the structure of photosynthetic machinery as well as the photosynthetic pigment present in within the chloroplast. So, now in the subsequent lecture we are going to discuss about the how these photosynthetic pigments are absorbing the lights and how they are participating into the process of photosynthesis. Thank you.